There's a specific kind of pain that doesn't arrive when things go wrong. It arrives after. When things have already been decided, when the door has already closed, when the person you hurt has already healed without you, or the opportunity you ignored has already found someone else, or the version of your life you kept putting off has quietly stopped being available. That's when it arrives. Not as sadness exactly, as something heavier. The particular weight of knowing exactly what you had now that you no longer have it. If you've ever felt that, or if you're feeling it right now, this video is going to explain something about that experience that most people carry their whole lives without ever having named for them. Stay till the end. Because the psychology of late regret is one of the most human things that exists, and understanding it won't take the pain away, but it will do something almost as important. It will help you understand why it happened. Let's start with something that changes the entire frame. Regret is not a flaw in the system. It is the system working exactly as designed. Psychologists who study regret, and there is a significant body of research on this, consistently describe it as a functional emotion. Its purpose is to signal that a decision was made that didn't align with your values, your priorities, or the person you wanted to be. It's uncomfortable by design, because discomfort is what produces change. The problem isn't that people feel regret. The problem is when the regret arrives at a point where the information it's carrying can no longer be used. And here's the question worth sitting with from the very beginning. Why does that happen? Why do so many people understand with painful clarity what mattered to them only after they've lost the chance to act on that understanding? The answer starts with something psychologists call the end of history illusion. Research published in Science by Jordi Quoidbach found something that should genuinely stop you for a moment. When asked how much they had changed over the past 10 years, people consistently gave detailed and accurate answers. But when asked how much they expected to change over the next 10 years, people dramatically underestimated it. Every age group, across different countries and backgrounds, showed the same pattern. We understand that we have changed. We struggle to believe that we will continue to change. We experience ourselves as the finished version of who we are right now, which means the values and priorities and understanding that will arrive with more experience, more loss, more living, feel invisible from here. The person who regrets too late wasn't being careless. They were being human. They were operating from the version of themselves that existed then, with the understanding available then, without access to the clarity that could only come from having lived through what they were about to live through. This doesn't dissolve the regret, but it does make the person more legible to themselves. Now let's go deeper, because the end of history illusion only explains part of it. There's another mechanism at work, and it's one that feels much more personal, much more like something you could have controlled. Psychologists call it temporal discounting. The well-documented human tendency to value things more in the present than in the future. Not because people are greedy or short-sighted, because the brain is literally structured to weight immediate experience more heavily than future experience. A relationship you have right now registers more concretely than the absence of that relationship you will feel later. The discomfort of a difficult conversation today registers more than the relief of having had it that you'll feel years from now. The effort required to change something registers more clearly than the cost of not changing it. So the person who avoids the conversation that needed to happen, who stays in the comfortable version of the situation rather than the honest one, who keeps choosing the path of least resistance without quite registering what they're choosing, isn't failing morally. They're failing to override a neural bias that evolution spent millions of years building. That's not an excuse, it's a description. And descriptions matter because they tell you what actually needs to change, rather than just where to aim the blame. Pause here for a second, because what comes next is the part that makes late regret so specifically painful. It's not just that the thing is gone, it's the quality of the knowing that arrives with the loss. When something is still present, still available, still within reach, the brain has a built-in mechanism for managing your relationship with it. Psychologists call this focalism, the tendency to adapt to circumstances by finding reasons they're acceptable. The relationship isn't perfect, but this part is good. The job isn't what I imagined, but I'm comfortable. The person isn't quite right, but changing would be harder than staying. This isn't denial exactly. It's the brain's way of making the present livable without requiring constant recalibration. But when the thing is gone, the focalism stops, because there's nothing to adapt to anymore. And suddenly, without the mechanism running, you see what was there with a clarity that wasn't available when you were inside it. The relationship becomes vivid in its value precisely because it can no longer be taken for granted. The opportunity becomes obvious in its significance precisely because the window has closed. The person becomes irreplaceable in your understanding at the exact moment they're no longer replaceable. This is what makes late regret so uniquely painful. It's not that you didn't care. It's that the system you were operating with, built by biology and psychology over years of experience, wasn't designed to show you the full value of things until after they were no longer available to lose. Now here's where it gets genuinely complicated, because some people move through late regret and some people stay inside it. And the difference between those two outcomes is worth understanding. Research on what psychologists call counterfactual thinking, the mental process of imagining how things could have gone differently, shows that people who regret late tend to fall into one of two patterns. The first is upward counterfactual thinking. If only I had done this differently, things would have been better. This pattern is painful in the short term, but it's also the pattern associated with learning, with behavioral change, with using the information the regret is carrying to actually do something different going forward. The second is rumination, the same thoughts cycling without resolution, the replaying of what happened without movement toward what it means or what comes next. This pattern doesn't process the regret, it marinates in it. And the difference between processing and marinating is one of the most important distinctions in the psychology of how people recover from painful realizations. Processing asks, what did this teach me, and where does that take me now? Marinating asks, why didn't I see it sooner, and stays in that question without ever arriving at an answer. Let's talk about what actually helps. Not in the abstract, not as advice, but as what the psychology consistently shows produces movement. The first shift is giving up the idea that earlier regret would have prevented the outcome. Sometimes it would have, but often the understanding that arrived too late was genuinely unavailable earlier. Not because you weren't paying attention, because you were a different person then. The regret you feel now is being felt by someone who knows more than you did when the decisions were made. That person didn't exist yet when they needed to. The second shift is understanding that regret is not a verdict on who you are. It's information about what you value. The things you regret most clearly are the things that mattered most. And knowing what matters to you, even at cost, is one of the most useful pieces of information you can carry forward. The third shift is the hardest. It's turning the clarity that arrived too late in that situation into something that arrives on time in the next one. This doesn't happen automatically. It requires deliberately bringing the awareness forward. Asking the question while things are still present that you usually only ask when they're gone. What would I regret losing here? What am I not saying that needs to be said? What am I treating as optional that isn't? That question, asked consistently while the door is still open, is the only real answer to the pattern of too late. And if you're sitting with regret right now, for something already gone, the only thing that serves you is this. The clarity is real. The loss is real. And the person you are now, who understands what you understand now, is someone that an earlier version of you would have desperately needed to become. You became them, just not quite in time for that specific thing. But there are other things still open, other doors still available, other people and opportunities and versions of your life that the person you are right now can still meet before it becomes too late. Don't let what you learned from losing something be wasted on mourning it. Take it somewhere new. If this video described you more accurately than you expected, please subscribe. I would genuinely appreciate it.